I dance to them all the time, Brandon, all the time.
You know, a lot of North Texas students like to have fun, but there is a serious side to the university. This week I took an investigative look at a mental disorder that the psychology department is shedding new light on. I'm standing in front of the Center for Behavioral Studies at North Texas State University. Inside this building, research takes place that helps us to understand the complexities of the human psyche. One professor in particular is making great strides in helping the rest of the psychological community understand a social sexual disorder that until recently has remained an enigma. Dr. Havilah Scott is the head psychologist of the Department of Abnormal Behavior. He has recently discovered a new disorder called Elvesticism.
Right. Elvesticism is a newly discovered disease in which the victim is characterized as wanting to play and taking on, in effect, the persona of Elvis Presley in order to survive, and particularly in order to engage in any sexual activities whatsoever, particularly if there's going to be any fulfillment involved with them. It's a very deep-rooted disease. We have traced it from a Freudian point of view and feel that it probably even goes back to a Jungian point of view and has some relationship to the embryonic development of man as a protoplasmic blob at the very, very beginning of history.
To better understand the personal effects of Elvesticism, I spoke with Clinton Carter, an Elvestite.
I try to find as many Elvis records and memorabilia as I can. I go to all the conventions. Last one was in Memphis, Graceland. I went out there and met Priscilla. It's hard to find the old movie soundtracks and especially the old Sun label recordings. And I talked to all the boys in Elvis's original band. I don't know, I just can't get enough of it. It's one of those things that just keeps snowballing. I mean, I guess Beatles fans are the same. No, I guess they can't be. Nobody can be like an Elvestite. Only Elvestites can be like Elvestites. I guess that's the way it is.
To find out more about this disease, I asked Clinton how it affected his former marriage.
I guess it all happened about a year into my marriage. I tried to quell the feelings. Nothing was happening with us, me and my wife, sexually, and I watched clam bake. I caught it one late night, and I taped it on the VCR, and I just couldn't get enough of it. I started taping all the old shows, and pretty soon I couldn't get at all excited about my wife sexually, that is, unless I had some type of Elvis icon or memorabilia. I don't know what you'd have to call it, but unless I had a mark, a twitch in my leg or anything, unless I was feeling like Elvis that night, I couldn't do anything. I was ineffective.
To find out the other side of the story, I talked with Clinton's ex-wife, Carol.
Things got worse and worse, and he finally we just didn't even try to have sex anymore. So we started just watching movies together for our entertainment. So one night I was in bed already, and he stayed up and watched a late movie, and it was Clam Bake with Elvis. And the next night he made me watch it 3 times in a row. And then that night when we went to bed, or that morning after we finished, we had sex, and it was great. And everything seemed normal again. And I think that watching the movie, Elvis turned me on a lot, and I think that he turned Clinton on too.
Oh, she's a great woman. She's a great woman. I guess I was too much. I was really a hound dog, and I really regret that. I used to call her my little teddy bear, and say I was all shook up and everything. I guess it was just too much for her. She's a normal woman, and I'm not well, I guess I am a normal Elvestite.
Initially, the spouse will go along with the change, enjoy it. It's sort of a new wave sort of thing. It's a trendy sort of thing. It's the sort of thing that people look at as kind of kinky, but fun, and it also gives them a sense of regaining their own youth as they're looking at the young kids going around with orange and yellow hair and punk clothing and things like that. But after a while, the fact that the wife is not really dealing with her husband person, but she's dealing with a facade. She is dealing with a lie. She's dealing with a persona that's not a real person, and she's also, of course, dealing with a persona that's dead.
It was one thing for him to pretend he was Elvis at home, and I got tired of that sometimes. But it got really old when he had to be Elvis all the time in public. It started out, we went to a Halloween party, and nobody thought anything about it. But then he continued, he always had to, every time we went to a restaurant, he dressed like Elvis. Every time we went to a movie, and I was so embarrassed. Everyone looked at me, and I didn't know what to do. I would just try to pretend I wasn't with him. But the straw that almost broke the camel's back was when he gave away our car. And I almost left him then, but I decided to give him one more chance.
The other thing we have to realize is that the Elvestite is going through a pattern of development, and he usually starts by imitating the Elvis who was young, the Elvis in his 20s, the Elvis who was the truck driver, the Elvis who was the GI, the Elvis who fell in love with the company commander's daughter, the Elvis that sent her through high school and waited for her to be of age before he could marry her, and that sort of thing. But as we know, Elvis ended tragically. And the Elvestite, as he is acting out, reenacting the progress of Elvis's life, also goes through the growth periods.
The final blow to our marriage was after Clinton had read in the National Enquirer about how Elvis had been doing drugs so heavily that he started wearing diapers to bed and had nurses there to change him. Couldn't even take care of that himself. So Clinton started wearing these big super Pampers to bed every night, and I thought that was kind of weird at first, but I went along with it. And after a week, he came to bed that night and he said, "Honey, I need for you to change my diaper." And that was it. I said, "Forget it," and I left.
Though many marriages are devastated by the trauma of Elvisticism, some can stay intact through proper counseling. We talked with recovering Elvestite Jay Maller, his wife Alan, and their daughter Gina.
Well, I think the entire episode began about 5 years ago. I was just out of undergraduate school and I was beginning graduate school, and there was a lot of pressure on me at the time. And although I hadn't really grown up with the King, I discovered him at about this time. I think it may have been related to the pressure that I felt.
One very tricky thing about this disease is that once someone is exposed to it and has suffered the symptoms, even if you think you have solved the problem, it's apt to come back at a strange time.
I understand that one night at a PTA meeting at Gina's elementary school, the police had to come and take me off the stage. I don't remember anything about it. I do remember waking up the next morning. Alan was there in the police station. She took me home and she said, "We've got to do something about this." That's about the beginning of the end, I think.
I was getting a lot of pressure from my family to get a divorce and get rid of him, get him out of our lives. And it was very difficult, but the counseling helped, and the meetings helped a lot. We got a lot of moral support from our friends.
The therapy and the group therapy has helped a number of people that we're working for, and we're breaking new ground that will help a great deal in the future. I worked, for example, with Jay Mellers for about 2 years now. And we have had very intensive study of all of his interpersonal relationships, and although he still sometimes comes up with an Elvis tic or an Elvis movement or a slight pelvic thrust that he finds it very, very difficult to control, he seems to be doing quite well, and we're really looking upon him as one of our more successful cases.
We had to go through arduous sessions. At the end of these sessions, I would just be drenched in sweat, and Dr. Scott also, because he was a very, very empathetic person. He could understand exactly what I felt. So, I feel a lot better now. I don't have those gobs of grease on my pillowcase anymore. I don't know.
a more recent individual, a more a raw youth, in effect, who is affected by this is a Clinton Carter. We are still trying to help him. We are having difficulty doing it because he is clinging very tightly to his Elvis principle. We are hoping, of course, that we will be able to get a breakthrough here through our intensive therapy, and we sometimes put these people in therapy for hours on end.
I went over here to the university and got some counseling help because I knew I needed it. I don't think I'm any closer to cure. I'm not sure if I'm any closer to cure, but I think the first step in the process is admitting you're an Elvestite.
Elvesticism is a devastating disease that disrupts lives and ruins homes. Though some men like Jay Maller manage to defeat it, others like Clinton Carter desperately cling to its illusions. Hopefully men of science like Dr. Havelock Scott and the others at the North Texas State Center for the Behavioral Studies will find a cure for it in our lifetime.
At first I cared. I really worried about being different. But now I realized that the king was different. The king was different than any other person who ever lived. And I'm different. And I'll always be different because I'll be like the king.